All right, so are you ready to dive in? Because today we're all about the CAMS exam.
Oh, yeah.
That's the Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist certification for anyone who's like, new to the AML world.
Right.
And trust me, this isn't just some, like certificate you hang on the wall.
Yeah.
Passing this exam is huge. It shows that you're serious about AML compliance and opens doors to some really incredible career opportunities.
It's like the gold standard in the AML field.
Exactly. And today we're going to tackle some actual CAM practice questions.
Oh, cool.
But here's the twist. We're not just going to skim the surface and find the right answer.
Right.
We're going to dig deep. We're going for the why behind the answers. Think of this like a master class in AML thinking. The kind that will not only help you ace the exam, but also make you a better AML compliance officer in the real world.
Because, memorizing answers won't really help you in real-life AML scenarios.
For sure. So let's jump into our first scenario. And this one's kind of intense. So picture this. You uncover evidence that senior executives at your institution have been totally ignoring major problems with the AML program.
Oh, wow.
Like turning a blind eye to some serious stuff. So what could happen to those executives?
So the consequences could be pretty serious.
Yep.
They could face personal liability, especially if there's evidence they knew about those deficiencies and just chose to ignore them.
Right.
Regulators like FinCEN are really serious about holding individuals accountable, not just the whole institution.
That's a good point. So it makes you wonder, have regulators always been this focused on individual accountability, or is this like a newer thing?
It's definitely become more prominent lately.
Okay.
We've seen a shift towards holding specific people responsible for AML failures, particularly those in leadership positions.
Right.
There have even been some high-profile cases where executives face big fines and even jail time.
Wow.
For their role in AML lapses.
That's a serious wake-up call.
Yeah.
That AML compliance is everyone's responsibility from top all the way down.
Absolutely.
And speaking of responsibility, our next question looks at what happens when a regulatory audit uncovers weaknesses in a bank's transaction monitoring system.
Oh, this is interesting.
Right. So imagine you're the compliance officer and you get this audit report and it's red flags everywhere.
Right.
What's your first instinct?
I think the immediate reaction might be to just, fix the specific issues the auditors flagged and move on.
Yeah, just slap a Band-Aid on it and hope for the best.
Yeah, but that's not really the best approach.
Right, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. You're missing the bigger picture.
So what should you do instead?
You got to dig deep. You need a deep dive into the root cause of those weaknesses.
Why is the system failing in the first place?
Exactly. Is it outdated technology? Are there risk parameters poorly defined?
Yeah, right.
Is the training inadequate? All of those things.
So how do you actually go about uncovering those root causes?
It's a multifaceted process. You got to examine the data that's feeding into the system. Is it accurate? Is it Then you look at the risk parameters. Are they aligned with the institution's risk appetite?
Yeah.
And the latest money laundering trends and typologies?
Right.
And don't forget about the human element. Are your employees properly trained to use the system and spot those red flags?
So it's not just about tweaking a few settings in the system. It's about looking at the whole ecosystem surrounding it.
Exactly.
Okay, so question 3. This one hits close to home for a lot of us. I think what happens when employees outside the compliance team are totally clueless about their AML responsibilities.
Oh, this is a common problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people think AML is only the compliance team's job.
It's not their problem.
Yeah, and that can create some huge vulnerabilities.
I've totally seen that firsthand. I once had a colleague who thought filing a suspicious activity report was basically snitching and refused to do it.
That's a perfect example of why you need clear communication and training.
Right.
The best solution is to build AML responsibilities into every single job description. That way, it's not just a compliance box to tick. It's a core part of their role.
Makes sense. It's about creating a culture where everyone knows they have a part to play in AML compliance.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, question 4 takes us to the global stage. How do we improve sanctions compliance in regions with weak regulatory frameworks?
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Especially with how global financial crime is these days. But I'd say there are 2 key approaches.
Okay.
First, training and workshops for professionals in those regions.
Makes sense.
Educating them about financial crime risks and best practices, sharing that knowledge.
So it's about building capacity in those regions.
Exactly. And secondly, encouraging governments to work together to share information and align their policies.
So closing those gaps in enforcement.
Yeah, making it harder for criminals to exploit weaker jurisdictions.
It's a big task, but super important in today's world.
For sure.
Okay, on to question 5. This one dives into background checks, especially for sensitive positions in finance.
Right? Like imagine a bank is hiring someone for a high-level role with access to sensitive customer data and transactions.
Right. They need to be extra careful.
Exactly. They need to be absolutely certain this person is trustworthy.
So what kind of deep dive do they need to do?
3 key areas are essential.
Okay.
First, you got to examine their employment history. Are there any unexplained gaps, inconsistencies?
Oh, yeah, that's always suspicious.
Absolutely. Second, conduct thorough online searches and check media reports. You never know what might pop up that wasn't on their resume.
It's like being an internet detective.
Kind of. And finally, the criminal background check is crucial.
Right, that's standard procedure.
Yeah, but you got to make sure it's comprehensive and covers all the relevant jurisdictions.
So it's a multi-layered approach using different sources to paint a full picture of the candidate.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to question 6, which is all about ensuring a bank's transaction monitoring system is actually effective.
It's not enough to just have the system, sitting there.
Right, because criminals are always finding new ways to exploit weaknesses.
Exactly. You need to make sure it's constantly evolving to keep pace with the changing landscape of financial crime.
So how do you stay ahead of the game?
2 crucial measures.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, regularly updating the transaction monitoring models.
Like giving it a software upgrade?
Yeah, think of it like updating your phone's operating system. You need to patch vulnerabilities and add new features to keep up with the latest threats.
So you're constantly improving the system's ability to detect suspicious activity.
Exactly. And second, you need to review customer risk profiles periodically.
Because people change their behavior, businesses evolve, new risks emerge?
For sure. By regularly reviewing and updating those profiles, you make sure the system is using the most accurate information to assess risk.
So it's about making sure the system is dynamically adapting to those changes.
Yeah.
Okay, on to question 7, which takes us to the world of international cooperation.
Okay.
What's the main tool that allows countries to share financial crime information across borders?
That would be mutual legal assistance treaties, or MLAs.
Okay, I've heard of those, but how do they actually work in practice?
Think of them like formal agreements between countries to help each other investigate and prosecute financial crimes.
Okay.
These treaties make it possible to share evidence, freeze assets, and even extradite suspects.
So it's about breaking down those jurisdictional barriers.
Exactly, because criminals love to exploit those.
Right, because money laundering often crosses borders, so international cooperation is key.
Absolutely.
Now, question 8 puts us in the shoes of a bank that's choosing a new AML transaction monitoring system.
This is a big decision.
For sure, it's not one size fits all.
No way.
So what factors should they prioritize when they're evaluating different systems?
2 things really stand out. First, the system's analytical capabilities. How well can it analyze all that transactional data, spot trends, and detect anomalies that might point to money laundering?
So it needs to be smart enough to find those subtle patterns that humans might miss.
Exactly. And second, the system's suitability for the bank's specific needs.
Yeah.
You got to consider their size, complexity, their customer base, and their overall risk profile.
Right. A small regional bank has different needs than a global giant.
Absolutely.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
And I remember from our deep dive into cybersecurity a while back, getting the right tech can make all the difference.
That's true.
Okay, let's move on to question 9, which deals with OFAC sanctions.
Okay.
Specifically, this one asks about who falls under OFAC's jurisdiction.
And the answer might surprise some people.
So it's not just like individuals living in the U.S.
Nope, it's broader than that. OFAC's jurisdiction covers all U.S. persons, which includes citizens, permanent residents, entities incorporated in the U.S., and even their foreign branches.
Wow, so it casts a pretty wide net.
It does, and that shows how far-reaching U.S. sanctions are and the importance of compliance no matter where you operate.
Right.
The penalties for non-compliance can be extremely severe for both the institution and the individuals involved.
Okay, so now, for a scenario that feels like it's straight out of a movie, question 10 describes an employee under investigation for fraud who suddenly resigns and disappears.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, shady.
Right? Yeah, that raises some major red flags.
So what are some signs that this might have been coming?
Well, one big one is evasive behavior about their job history.
Okay.
Gaps in employment, they can't explain inconsistencies in their story, or reluctance to provide references. Those are all warning signs.
So a lack of transparency about their past is a bad sign.
Absolutely. Another red flag is a lifestyle that doesn't match their income.
Oh.
If they're driving fancy cars, taking lavish vacations, or making big purchases that don't align with their salary, that's a cause for concern.
like they're living way beyond their means.
Exactly. It could be a sign they're using ill-gotten gains.
So it's about connecting the dots between their financial behavior and their lifestyle.
Right. We hope this deep dive has helped you prepare for the CAMS exam and sparked your interest in this critical field.
Remember, passing the exam is just the first step. The real reward is using your knowledge and skills to make a difference in the fight against financial crime.
So keep learning, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of collaboration.
Together, we can make the financial world a safer and more transparent place for everyone.
Best of luck on your CAMS journey. You got this.